Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves, and I want to tell you guys how excited I am to be back. It's been kind of a rough month, and we've been kind of regrouping here at the Leather Elves, and then on a more somber note, just so you guys know. We're in Maine, and there was a mass shooting in Maine this week, and so everybody's kind of reeling from that. So if you can send some positive vibes towards Maine, that would be wonderful. So a couple of things. As always, it's been a while, so I have to remember. You can like and follow us on Facebook, the Leather Elves. You can also like us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, and on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. So there's a bunch of different ways you can get this information. And this one is particularly fun for me because I do like all the different things that you guys come up with. So if you've got ideas, please share them in the comments, and we can share with everybody that's listening. The other thing I want to talk about is my vulture friend here. Okay, I know it's not a parrot, but it is a bird. And a shout out to my friend Jeff Wells, who is an incredible artist who sent this to me for Halloween. So let's get started. Um, it's I'm old enough to remember when harvest time meant that was when you got the really cool vegetables and fruits and stuff that you couldn't get other times of the year. I don't know if anybody that's listening is old enough to remember those times, but I do. And I remember one of my favorites was a pomegranate. You could only get pomegranates during the holiday season, and now we're lucky enough that they're available year round. That said, it doesn't diminish the fact that it is harvest time. And especially here in the Northeast, they're closing out their gardens, and the farmers markets are full of really cool options for your birds. And it doesn't matter whether you feed fresh all the time, whether you feed a pelleted diet, a mixture of the two, whatever your choice is. The farmers market still offers a great form of enrichment. It's dietary enrichment. And I know I've often told you guys dietary comes last, but for tonight, dietary comes first. Okay. And the one caution I have is you've got to be careful for foodborne pathogens. When you get your produce, wash it really well. Even if you get it from a farmer's market, you still want to wash it really well. And don't leave it in the cage for long periods of time. Because what happens is those pathogens build up. It's just a wet surface, and they're going to start to build up. So you want to be really careful that you're not leaving your fresh stuff in all day. Okay. So I went to the farmer's market. We are lucky enough here in Maine. We have great farmers markets with wonderful vendors. We also live about 10 minutes from an Amish farm. And I've made friends with the woman, and I think sometimes she thinks I'm crazy because I'm like, oh, I could use this for this. And she kind of looks at me. Or I'll say, oh, that would be great for birds. And she kind of looks at me. But she's getting to know that I have these weird quirks, and it's okay. So I went to the farmer's market, and I can't even lift the bag, but I took my bird endowment bag with me. Shout out to everyone at the Bird Endowment and all the wonderful conservation effort for saving the blue-throated macaws. And they sent me a thank you for being a habitat hero, and you can be a habitat hero as well. So what did I get at the farmer's market? One of the biggest boons in the fall is squash, winter squash. I have a friend who always tells me that summer squash and zucchini are tortoise food, that there is not a whole lot of nutritional value. So we've kind of stayed away from those things. But we've got winter squash, and there are so many different varieties, and they do have different tastes. They are there's some are a little sweeter than others. The texture is different on them. And when you're thinking about giving fresh dietary enrichment, you really want to think about, still there. I'll keep talking.
You froze up for a moment, but you're back.
Okay, all right. I was like, "Wow, I'm looking at myself do nothing." That was kind of exciting. Sorry about that, guys. I did mention we are in Maine, so, internet, just saying. Um, but the squashes, different textures of squashes, and some are a little bit more stringy, some are, more smooth, and it depends, what you're looking for, and you will get to know, what your birds, really, really enjoy. So some of the examples that I have tonight are a little bit different. And I've got to tell you, I'm going to go with the names that my Amish friend told me they are. And there are probably more scientific or specific names for them, but I think you can probably figure it out. So the first one we're going to talk about is called a delicata squash. And it looks like this. It's not really big, they're not huge. These have a really sweet flavor. They're wonderful. They cut really easily, and it's definitely something to consider. It's a little bit different. You don't see them everywhere, but it is we refer to it here as a delicata squash. So that's one. This one, I was kind of like, oh, look, little pumpkins. But she informed me that no, it's not a pumpkin. It's called a sunshine squash. And I have to be perfectly honest, I have not tried this one yet. She told me that this has a sweeter texture than your guy, your guy knows that I love it. Adrian, that spaghetti squash is not spaghetti. I know I tried to pull that over on Mark and he didn't believe it either. Yeah, so it is, but it's squash, so it's a nice option, and it's a different texture. So Ray, are we taught you think that the sunshine squashes are delicious? Okay, so there we go. Testimony from Ray. Sunshine squashes, just another variety. They do look like a little pumpkin. So that's another in your squash arsenal. And then I have two delicatas because they're so good. And I have to keep them away from my daughter-in-law. She's vegan and she really enjoys all the fresh produce we can get at this time of year. So, um, okay. Oh, the delicata are the ones that Ray says are delicious. I got it. Hi, Dorothy. Wait, you missed it. Um, this is what I took to the farmer's market. Oh, wait. There we go. Sorry, Dorothy Patterson just signed on, and I wanted to share that. So this one you guys are probably all familiar with, a butternut squash. And again, this is a staple. I mean, you can get this all year long. Not super easy to cut, but our friends in the supermarket have made it easy for us. This comes all cut up and nice, and grab some of that during the holidays while they have the extra cut up ones. So that's just another squash. And then the last one I have for squash is called a honey bell. And it looks like a butternut squash. It's a little bit darker in color, and it has some green on the outside as well. But this is the honey bell squash, and it's really supposed to be slightly sweeter again than the butternut squash. So now we're gonna just you can take all those, and this is your Thanksgiving dinner right here if you're vegetarian or vegan. Um, there's so many things that are out there. Some of them I don't have. All the different greens that are coming, to the end of their harvest life. So greens are a wonderful way to increase your bird's fresh intake. I know I have a woman who we've been talking to quite a bit, and her bird will not eat kale. If any of you out there have a suggestion for how to make that happen, please put it in the comments because she's struggling with this. And I've said, do it this way, do it that way. How about this? How about that? And she's really up against the wall as far as that's concerned. So if you have any suggestions with greens, let's talk about that when we're talking about how we're going to present it. Pomegranate. So Adrian, you making that and sending me some? I saw that pan roasted squash with pomegranate balsamic and shaved Parmesan. You're not making that for your birds, are you? Maybe sneaking them a little bite, but that you can definitely send that. I'll give you my address later and you can send that to me for Thanksgiving. We're doing a Friendsgiving. My neighbors will appreciate you, Adrian. So pomegranates, again, They used to be only seasonal. They're not anymore. They are definitely easier to get at this time of year. They are wonderful, wonderful enrichment, and a great addition to your bird's diet. So pomegranates, grapes. Some grapes are harvested this time of year. You don't want to over. And I should have said this at the beginning. You don't want to overdo any of these because too much of a good thing, and you're going to have some issues. And I was, kind of looking today on Facebook and stuff, and Lefebvre says, you can cut up this and you can feed it this way, you can feed it that way, but just be careful that you're not overwhelming your birds with too much of a good thing. Okay. Apples. We've got apples, all different kinds of apples. It's apple picking season. This is a Cortland. And look at this nice little size. It's perfect if you've got one bird and you want to like share some apple. Right here, nice size, and they are available everywhere. You can go into any store, a Walmart, and you can get your. I do need the recipe. Thank you, Adrian. But you can get apples anywhere, and there are so many different ways you can present them. So keep apples in your list. So I was talking to Nick before we started, and I was like, "Oh, I got this, and this. Is there anything you can think of that I missed?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Brussels sprouts." Wah, wah, wah. I personally am not a Brussels sprout fan. Adrian, if you've got a recipe for Brussels sprouts, you can send me that too. But Brussels sprouts, I just don't think of them, honestly. But they, again, can be fed in so many different ways that, keep them on your list. Keep them on that nice to share, nice to have list. Green beans. We're coming to the end of green bean season. I'm so sad. But green beans are wonderful. There's that string that they can pull out. There's so much to a green bean, and they sometimes get overlooked. You can also freeze green beans. I learned this because there was a plethora of them at my farm stand, and you can freeze them. And they don't get completely mushy when you little trees. That's absolutely what they are. Um, and you can freeze some of those green beans. Pumpkins, right? Pumpkins. That's what we definitely, they're everywhere right now till next Tuesday, and then they'll be on sale, even better. So pumpkins, and there's so many different things you can do. And then of course, the seeds from the pumpkins. And we will talk about that. And the last, but certainly not least, the sweet potato. Always good. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of discussion out there. And I was saying to Nick, I want to talk about how to feed these things. How are you going to present this to your birds? And there you can cook them. And then in the back of my head, Dr. Crean's voice comes into my head and says, you don't need to cook any of it. And so there is that. I'm glad you're here. It's okay that you're late. You don't have to sit in the front. So there are so many different ways to offer these things. And I just saw that I think Nancy Vesely's on, and I'm going to tease Nancy a little bit. You can do big chunks of stuff. So, I mean, if you want to cut this in half and scoop out the seeds, here you go. This is it. It's not labor. It doesn't have to be labor intensive. It can be as simple as cutting up large pieces. And if you guys don't have a skewer, go get one. I'll wait. Oh no, I can't do that. But go get yourselves a skewer. Um, oh, what turkey sloppy Joe sweet potatoes? When did this turn into a cooking show? I love it though. That's awesome, Michelle. So take that skewer and cut up big hunks of all of these different kinds of things. Big hunks of the apples, big hunks. Make the birds have to work for it. Make them have to, make smaller pieces out of it. Make them make the chop because they will. I can almost guarantee you they're not going to leave it because it's in a big piece, and I've said this, I wish I had like even a nickel for every time I've said this. There's nobody in the wild cutting up these fruits and veggies for our birds. Mark says skewers are available at the leatherelves.equid.com. I probably need to go get some more in stock, but yes, they are. So get yourself a skewer if you don't have one. Um, Michelle puts toy parts on it, on her skewer. But so alternate, Michelle. Do a piece of squash and a toy item, and then all on the skewer. And then your bird's got to work a little bit harder to figure out which, do I want the food? Do I want the toy? And it's also adding food and fresh food to toy items, as long as you can clean them out, is a great way to get some birds involved with a toy that may have been hesitant at first. So chunks. You can cut it into little bits too. Maybe that's a way to figure out which one they really like. Do they want, are they picking out just this one piece? Oh, there you go. So Adrian puts big chunks in her stainless steel foraging cages. And I mentioned this the other night when I was talking to the woman who can't get her bird to eat kale. We were talking about taking that stainless steel foraging cage. They're wonderful. That's another thing you guys should have. They are not available at the Leather Elves. But yes, they can absolutely have the seeds, Cindy, not an issue. And tearing up the pumpkins, that's awesome. But as far as those cages, if you put the favorite, like if you've already figured out which fresh item your birds like the best, put that in the center and then put the other stuff around it that's like, meh, I might eat that. And then put the things that they are not maybe a fan of on the outside. So they've got to at least go through the not so favorites to get to the favorite. And I suggested to Elaine that she put kale on the outside. Yeah, Shadow is like, no, not working for it. Sorry. Put kale on the outside of the yummy stuff, and then they're going to have to go through, at least tear through the kale before they get to the sweet stuff in the middle. Excuse me. So raw is definitely, there are more nutrients. We all know this hopefully from our personal lives and how we're cooking things. Raw is better than cooked. And but it's up to you. That's a personal preference. You do you. We've said that 1,000 times here on Flock Talk, whatever is comfortable. Michelle says she basket weaves the kale through the outside. He walks away, but he goes back later. See, there you go. And that's the thing too. So it's kind of a tightrope that you have to walk when you're feeding this wonderful fresh produce, that you want to leave it there if they're ignoring it to start with. But you don't want to leave it there too long. 5 years, Adrian waited out her umbrella girl before she decided that the leafy green stuff was something she could eat. It's true. It's definitely about, are you mixing veg? Yeah, you can mix them. Carla, that's not, you want to be careful that you're not doing a ton of sugar in what you're offering. Okay. But you can definitely mix them. There is absolutely, I guarantee you our birds will not differentiate. It's going to be whatever, they're individuals just like us. And I said before, like, I'm not a fan of Brussels sprouts, but I am going to try them this Thanksgiving. But I'm not a fan of Brussels sprouts. It might be your favorite thing. And our birds are all individuals, and we have to recognize, because one of our birds likes something, the other bird might be like, oh no, that is not something that I'm going to eat. So it's kind of, it's a tightrope that, you walk with how long am I going to leave it in before I say, okay, it's not good anymore. And then it's also kind of like detective work to figure out which ones are really the ones that they like. And you've got to be careful that, it's not all the fruit, all the sweet yumminess. It can be, it can be something that's, there should be a mixture. So they're not just picking out the blueberries or the one food item and not eating anything else. Maybe you save that for a training session. So it's definitely, there's a learning curve when it comes to this. And you really have to, I know, Michelle, I think Nick made those in there at his house and he's holding them hostage. I don't know. But they do look yummy. So you want to think about raw versus cooked. Um, and if you want to cook, that's fine. But know that your nutritional value is going down as you cook. Okay. The other thing you can do is do some blended stuff. You guys have blenders. I'm hoping you do. I know that Cindy probably does with birds with names like Mai Tai. But in case you're, using your blender for healthy things, you can make smoothies out of them. Okay. Throw some stuff in a blender and see what happens. Sweet potatoes do not have to be cooked. I looked that up myself tonight, Cindy, because Cindy asked, do they have to be cooked? I looked that up myself because I was questioning that, because you do hear, yes, they do, no, they don't. On the Lefebvre website, they say that no, they can be fed raw or cooked. So that is one of those things that we've heard time and time again. Ooh, Trader Joe's has Brussels sprouts on the stock. Don't everybody leave right now. But that's a good, thank you for that tip, Michelle. So smoothies, mixing them in. And if you've got a bird that's real hesitant about pellets, throw some pellets in the smoothie, right? Pellets can, for some birds, pellets are the evil that is in the bowl. Throw them in a smoothie. You're getting that nutrition in there, and it's disguised in the yumminess. Okay, so smoothies are another way. Presentation is really what it's all about for me, as far as from an enrichment standpoint and from a dietary standpoint. You've got to make it. You've got to make it something that they're going to want to eat. The wonderful colors of the fresh stuff that's out this time of year, that helps, because our birds are definitely, driven by those colors. I can't tell you how many times, there's been that debate about Zupreme, and does your bird only eat one color of Zupreme? And again, I wish I had a nickel for every time someone tells me that. Carla, no, they're not the go-to diet authority, but that was the authority that I found before we started tonight. Adrian, that's awesome. Adrian, that's a great suggestion. Adrian said smoothies can be used for syringe training too, because it's yummy stuff. The only thing you got to be careful with, and I absolutely agree with you, the only thing you've got to be careful with is that you don't only give the wonderful, yummy stuff in the syringe, because then when you have to give them the medication that tastes like yuck, you have just bankrupted the trust account. That first time you give them that medication, they're like, yo, that is not the happiness that I usually get out of the syringe. So you want to just be careful that, you when you're first working with them with a syringe, absolutely, the yummies are where you go. But you kind of got to throw in some not so yummy so that they're not completely blown away when you give them that kind of not so good stuff. It's good stuff, but it doesn't taste so good. Presentation is really, really important. Visually, we talk about different kinds of enrichment. We talk about dietary, we talk about manipulative or tactile. We talk about olfactory. We talk about, dietary being last on the list. So you can check all those enrichment boxes with fresh produce, because again, look at these colors. I mean, this is this wonderful, bright, um, rich orange color. And then when you cut open some of the squashes, you get these beautiful colors, and it's definitely, that eye appeal, that visual enrichment that you're providing, and the dark greens. I mean, all of those things are definitely visually appealing. And then the olfactory, there is a scent to every single one of these fresh food items. So you're doing olfactory as well. With dietary, that's obvious. You're offering different things, but you're checking all those boxes, and all it takes is taking that trip to the farmer's market, or even to the supermarket, and getting some of these different produce items that aren't around all the time. So, from an enrichment standpoint, where do we go with this? And how do we convince our birds that this is something they want? Or how do we entice them to at least try it? Some of you may be lucky enough to have they're lucky enough to have birds that will go to anything new. Not everybody has those birds. Some people have birds like Adrian said 5 years before her umbrella girl was willing to try green stuff. Cindy, just be careful. I would go with the pumpkins that are that are fit for human consumption, because there are some of those fancy gourds out there that are not to eat. They're absolutely just for decoration. So I wouldn't suggest going to the landscape place that has all the really cool shapes and things like that. And you want to make sure, Adrian brings this point up, you want to make sure that they are not coated with anything. If they're super shiny, you probably got an issue going on. That's the same I tell anybody when they go to get a grapevine wreath, or at Michael's or wherever. Just make sure that it's not shiny and it doesn't have any preservative or coating on it, because then you've got some issues because you don't know what that is. So from the enrichment point of view, you're offering variety. You're offering dramatically eat it in front of him and not share it until he begs for it. Oh, look at you guys are all teasing your birds out there. No, it's modeling behavior. So go with the scientific name and the scientific explanation of that. That's modeling behavior. And you really want to make sure that it's things that you can eat as well. And it's the decorative stuff. I mean, they have the ones that are shaped like a goose, and they have the ones that are all lumpy and stuff. I probably wouldn't do those. Yeah, the farmer's market is your best bet, Cindy. If they're selling it for you to eat, then you can probably give it to your birds. When it comes to produce, not the Oreo cookies or the M&Ms. So what can we do? How can we make this more intriguing, more interesting? Let's talk about pumpkins. So hopefully you're all carving pumpkins, because Halloween is such an amazing holiday, and you want to decorate. So when you carve that pumpkin, you're going to scoop out all those seeds, and it's icky and really not pleasant. It kind of looks like brains. I don't know, but you're going to pull that all out. You're going to clean them off, and you can roast them. You're not gonna roast them with salt, because obviously we don't wanna give our birds that extra salt. That's not necessary. Or, people with heart conditions, we don't want them to have too much salt. So we gotta watch out for our friends, and roast them just as you would the pumpkin seeds that you'd be doing for yourself, except omit the salt. Those seeds are great. Those are wonderful as far as training treats are concerned, because yeah, you can get them all year round. You can buy them, in bags and things like that. But it's a very fresh treat. And I think that's, something to consider. So you can roast those. All right, so you've got your seeds. So that's, one payoff from buying your fresh pumpkin. You've carved it. It looks great. It's wonderful on your front, doorstep. What about using that as a foraging opportunity? So you've got all these little holes, right, that are in here, and you put that favorite food item in there. So now your bird's got to work through there to get it out. And you can just drill holes in a pumpkin and then put things in there. You can stuff things in the holes that you drilled. It's definitely, a way to offer a favorite treat. And you take that favorite treat, you stick it in the hole that you drilled with your drill, or that you just, put your screwdriver in and made a hole, or your knife. And then that food item's there, that favorite food item, I'm gonna go work for that. And, "Oh, hey, wait, this pumpkin is kind of good too." So it's all about the approach. You're not just saying, "Here's a pumpkin." You need, that's they told me the other night, Friday night flock talk, that was good. And, okay, your bird really doesn't care what I have to say. You might, and I hope you do, but, they're not gonna just jump on a pumpkin. So you've gotta make it a little bit appealing. You've gotta give them. It's like offering somebody a paper bag. So you might wanna take the chance and take the paper bag, but you probably wanna know what's inside before you take that paper bag. So your birds need to know. If they've never seen a pumpkin before, they may not know that it's a food source. Some of them will just go right for it, others will not. So if you have that bird that will not, you need to entice them a little bit with a favorite treat, or, put a nut in the holes. You can decorate all over the pumpkin with fresh nuts and things like that, which are also available during the holiday season. And we also know They clean the mushy stuff out and let them dry, then add to the food, no roasting needed. There you go. Yeah, you can absolutely feed them raw as well. I don't know, if I'm doing it for myself, I might as well have it. Um, and then you get a treat too. See, that's the thing. Unless you're eating those raw pumpkin seeds, Adrian, I don't know. But, it's definitely, the season to stock up on stuff too. It was mentioned earlier that you can freeze the pumpkin freezes really well. So you wanna think about that. All of these things, you're gonna freeze them and you pull them out. They might be a little bit mushy, when thaw them out, and they're not the best is to feed them fresh. But if you can't do that and you need to stock up, then do it and freeze it. So pumpkins. So you've got them carved, you've got them foraging in there. You've taken out the seeds. Now we can talk about the meat too. Yeah, it's Shadow gives everything the evil eye. There you go. I don't know. Am I going to eat that? It might want to eat me, and then it's all good. And he trusts you, so that's good. Um, Chickens and peacocks, absolutely, Cindy. They're wonderful. And it's quite entertaining for us as well when our birds encounter something that they may not have encountered before. So you want to think about that entertainment factor for yourself because we do deserve that sometimes. You can put things inside one another. So you take that pumpkin and you put sunshine squash inside, and then you put some delicata squash inside that, and then you put some pieces of apple inside that. You're kind of blowing your farmer's market budget right there because they're not going to eat all of it. But at least you're giving them variety. You're giving them something different, something new to try. Um, Carla, you're reading my mind. She said hers love pomegranate. So it is one of my all-time favorite enrichment items as far as produce is concerned. The Michelle said it's the veggie version of turducken. We'll have to come up with a name for it. Pump squash. We'll work on that. But Carla, as far as pomegranates are concerned, I like to just quarter them or cut segments and put the whole thing in. You need to know that your bird will be reddish purple, especially if it's a cockatoo or a lighter colored bird. It does look like a crime scene, absolutely 100%. We should probably not have any law enforcement folks over while we're doing that, but giving them the whole piece and making them pick it out. I've known hundreds of people that pull out the aerials, the little like seeds. They pull them out and feed them just like that. And that's fine too. If you would like to go through that effort, then by all means, and you won't waste as many. But in my opinion, take the whole slab, like the slab of pomegranate, and have them pick them out. And and especially like birds, they'll grind them with their beak. Cindy said, beware of the poop too. This is true. Don't lose your mind when the poop turns pink or red or purple, because it does happen. So Shadow likes a section in a shallow bowl of water. I like that too. You can put any of these fresh food items in the center of a shallow bowl of water for your birds that won't bathe. Put them right in the center. And if they've already figured out that that's a favorite thing to eat, or wow, that's really something exciting, they're going to go in the water. And then they will realize that the water is not going to, swallow them up whole. So it's just another way to add another dimension to the enrichment that you're offering. So the large chunks of pomegranate, in my opinion, is the way to go. You can also freeze the individual aerials. You put them out on a cookie sheet, flash freeze them, and then put them in bags or portion them out as you like. Those little snack baggies are great. You just put a few in there and you can freeze them individually, just pull them out when you want to use them, and feed them that way. You can also feed them frozen. So it kind of feels mean because it's not they're much harder. They have to work a little bit harder, but you can freeze things and feed them that way. So by flash freeze, Carla, I mean, you just put them in and they're in there for a half an hour. They're probably not frozen solid, but at least they'll maintain their shape. So it's flash freeze them. That's what I refer to as flash freezing. So definitely a way. And if you feed things frozen, like you feed those little pomegranate Ariels frozen, you're now adding yet another dimension to your enrichment toolbox, because now you're dealing with temperature. So it's another tactile sensation that you are addressing. And it doesn't require that you cook them. They're frozen. There's no cooking involved. Um, Adrian mixes the frozen thawed ones in the wet food in the morning. Definitely a way to get some new um, texture and dynamic to what you're feeding. If you throw a few pieces of pomegranate in water, it would be like there you go. Who is that? Isabella. That's awesome. Isabella, welcome. I love that idea. And I think you can float a lot of these things. And it just, again, it's how I like to take all the categories of enrichment that I've talked to you guys about for years. Um, and see how many of them I can put in one opportunity. How many things? So, you've got tactile, you've got with the temperature, with the texture of things, you've got dietary because it's a new dietary experience. It's a new, it may be a positive dietary item for them. You can do visual, like I said, we've got these great colors. So you're adding all these different layers onto your enrichment. And it's not just, okay, I've got here's the toy and boom, that's it. You're getting destructible. You're getting whatever. Little tiny apples. Michelle did it with Shadow. Bobbing for radishes. There we go. You know, it may become a thing, Adrian. I think we should probably see if we can make it become a thing. Um, it's it's definitely, it might be tough to sell at first, but I think it might be good. So write that down. Um, Cindy corrected this. Her spell check said pork tacos, not flock talk. She gets great ideas from everybody, and I agree. I love doing this because I hear all different things that you guys are doing, and then I can share it with other people. Kumquats, again, not something I eat on a regular basis, so it's not in my wheelhouse, but that's definitely another good option. So Isabella said you could carve out a mini pumpkin and use it as the bobbing bowl. I love how festive that's the thing, you can do all kinds of stuff. So I wasn't planning on talking about this, but we just made these we did a DIY workshop for Halloween, and we sent the kit to people. People purchased the kit and we sent them out. But this is simply one of those paper cups. Like they used to have at drinking fountains when they still had drinking fountains, and water coolers. And you just put it upside down, and then your bird's got to lift this up to get to whatever you put underneath. So it's simple. It's really simple, and it's fun, and it's festive. So Isabella, here's another idea for Halloween festive. Michelle was part of that workshop. We also do, let's do this at Parrot Festival. We're going to do bobbing for radishes at Parrot Festival, according to Adrian Mock. You're going to have to check that with the Parrot Festival committee. I'm not sure how they'll feel about that. We also did some fun foraging mats with places to put food in. Wicker balls, okay? Wicker balls are an awesome way to present fresh food items, because they're not just sitting in a bowl. You can take them out, put them back in. You can take the food out, and you're not going to ruin the wicker ball. You don't want to put something sopping wet in a wicker ball. There you go. Pictures of your birds eating these items on the Leather Elves page. Thank you, Nick. That's a great idea. Because I want to see these, and I love building this community so that you guys can share these, because there's a lot of stuff that you do. And when you do it at your house and you go, oh, everybody's doing this. Well, maybe they're not. I mean, we've clearly hit on tonight that there are definitely things that people are doing that other people hadn't thought of. So share that information and talk to your friends about it, because it may be something that's a super original idea that nobody has thought of. Parrot Festival. The answer to that, Deborah, is Parrot Festival is the last full weekend in January every year in Houston, Texas. It is an incredible event. I highly suggest going. There are speakers. It's in a hotel, and we take over a room in a hall of vendors, all different kinds of vendors, and it's yeah, Houston Parrot Festival is the way to find it. Thank you, Adrian. But so thank you very much, Isabel. I appreciate that. And we do, that's the nice thing about Flock Talk. I will share what you guys are sharing, and you can read through the comments too. But that's what this is about. I can sit here and talk to you all day long, and I can have people, different guests on, and we can talk, but it's your input that kind of helps everybody out. And that's the goal of why we do this. It's to introduce you to new things, get you maybe thinking in different ways, and thinking of things that, might be a little outside your comfort zone, but trying it anyway. Carla, there is nothing comparable in Boston. Maybe we need to start that. Um, it would be great, wouldn't it, to have something like that up here in the Northeast? I don't know. We'd have to pick a non-snow month, but we might be able to make it happen. But go to Houston. It's worth going. So another thing you can do with the pumpkins is create foraging bowls. You can just hollow them out, then you roast your seeds, you cut out some of the meat or the flesh, and then create a foraging bowl. So it's the bird version of taco salad. You know how taco salad comes in those wonderful edible bowls? So it's those, and then you fill it up with things. You get to eat the shell as well. So our birds can eat, whatever you decide to hollow out. You could use one of these. You could use a honey bell. You could use a butternut squash. They're all going to fall off my desk. If you use a butternut squash, you can cut it in half, and then the bottom is certainly big enough to use for a foraging bowl. So there's a lot of different things. Hide things in apples. Apples are great. You can push things into them. The flesh is soft enough. Put nuts in here, pine nuts, almonds, you name it. And any kind of nut, you can stick it right in here. And it's just a different delivery service, if you will. So it's worth trying new things, and taking, when you cut open your pumpkin, when you open any of the squash, stick things in it. It's like that bonus. They're like, oh, I'm eating the squash, and now there's this bonus. So there's a lot that's going on. You can also mix, and I think I mentioned this earlier, mix your pellets and some of your fresh. I am not going to tell you only feed pellets or only feed fresh. That is not my decision for you. That's your decision for you. And so if you're feeding a combination, you can mix them together. Just make sure your pellets don't, go bad, and you don't end up with again, those foodborne pathogens. So you really want to be aware of how long it's staying in the cage. The biggest thing I have to advocate for is the skewers. They're easy breezy. I'm always amazed at people who work really hard to make chop, because it can be so labor intensive, and you can just cut a big chunk and stick it on a skewer, and you're meeting a lot of the same goals. Okay, you're offering a different food option. You're offering it to them in a different way. You're asking them to interact with it in a different way. So yeah, Terry says she loves skewers. Variety and balance over time. It's so true, Adrian. But the skewers are just, and okay, if you're not using them for food, so you decide today is not a big chunk food day, then throw some toy parts on there. Throw a wicker ball with a food item in it, stick it on a skewer. It's really about changing things up. So Michelle says another thing she's doing is she bought tiny stainless cookie cutters to make veggie shapes for each upcoming holiday. Oh, that's really sweet, Michelle. Celebrate life with your birds. Celebrate what you're being offered in nature, and then celebrate what kind of whatever you're celebrating, and do it in a healthful way, a healthy way, healthful. I like healthful. Um, so that, because we often think about our celebrations as, cookies and cake and things that aren't good for us. And maybe it's time to start thinking about what's being presented to us in a natural way. And how do we make that into a celebration? How do we turn it into something that we can share with our birds? Because with the holidays coming up, I don't know about you guys, but there's always all kinds of unhealthy stuff in my house. There's, the cookies, the this, the that, and it's a matter of how do I turn that into something that I can share with my birds, because they are an important part of your life and your family, and it's how do you share that? How do you make eating and all these different things you're offering? Food should be fun for us and our critters. Absolutely, Adrian. It's a matter of how do I make this into a party? Every meal should be a party. That doesn't mean it has to be bad for you. It just means you have to think about how you're presenting it. And I think we are offered that chance when we think about feeding fresh and we think about feeding, freshly harvested produce. I think in fruits and vegetables, I think that's something to really, really consider. So, what else are you guys doing? We've got so many great suggestions here tonight. I mean, the other thing, I know some people, I took the cookie cutters, drilled a hole in the top and bottom, and ran the skewer through it. Okay, so it makes noise, I would assume. As long as they're not sharp edges, that's a great idea. The wooden shapes, I mean, just putting them on, you don't have to dye them. You can dye them different colors, but if you're alternating with food items, then you're getting that color from that. It doesn't have to be always bright and flashy when it comes to the wood pieces that we're offering. Let's see. So Adrian stuffed small sweet peppers with mash and cooked mix, and that's a favorite at her place. So stuffed peppers. I didn't even mention peppers. That's another one. Stuffed peppers. You can put things in them. They sell the little teeny tiny, cute for charcuterie board peppers a lot of places, and you can just put things in those. And it's just about. I mean, when you think about it, and we try not to anthropomorphize. Um, Cindy feeds the birds better than she feeds Carol. So you save her chop. That's good. So as long as we know that Carol's healthy, we're good. You're offering her those options, but taking different things and think about. We don't want to anthropomorphize, but think about if your food got presented exactly the same way every day, and it was exactly the same food. Would that be the least bit uh, intriguing to you or enticing? You'd get sick of it pretty quickly. I mean, there's those favorite food items, and that's another thing you got to be careful with when you're feeding fresh. Favorite food items, we all have them. I mean, it's the big ice cream sundae or whatever that favorite food item may be. But if you had to eat it every single day, eventually it would get really old. And so you want to think about, skewering them. That's a great idea, Terry, the small peppers. Um, I was talking to a woman the other day who told me that her bird peels off the skin of everything. Even like a tomato or a grape or peppers, she takes the bird takes the skin off of everything and then leaves it and lets it, just kind of be trash. It's not something that she wants. So that's interesting. So it's another dynamic. Excuse me. It's something that our birds are able to interact with the food, and have one more little activity to do that goes with it. But Shadow peels his grapes. Isn't he? He's an elitist, I think, Michelle. I don't know. I'm starting to think so. Birds couldn't have tomatoes. Tomatoes are in the nightshade family. Did I say tomatoes? I meant peppers. But yeah, we probably don't want to overdo with tomatoes. I know a lot of people feed their birds sauce, but I wouldn't overdo it with the tomatoes. So, um, I hope that helps, Cindy. But if you're offering the same thing all the time, change it up a little bit. Yeah, Adrian says it takes them longer to eat, and eating can actually be an activity. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So Deborah says, my bird won't eat any healthy, fresh items. She will land on my shoulder. If I'm making a steak, she will hunt me down. I know she should not have steak. Um, I know a lot of people that would hunt people down for a steak. I definitely do, my husband being one of them. But have you tried I want so Deborah, trying modeling, trying some of the things that we've talked about tonight, if you wanna review through the comments, if you I don't know if you were on the whole, Flock Talk, but some of the things, just changing it up a little bit, putting that healthy item with a not so healthy item. Take, one of the healthy, fresh produce items and put something, like a manufactured treat. If there's a treat that you use, so Deborah, is there a treat that's a favorite thing for your bird? Like, is it, and I'm not saying these are unhealthy. She eats pellets, Harrison's. Okay, so maybe you take an apple, or you take a squash, and you stick some Harrison's pellets in it. So she's gonna get a taste of that, and maybe it will change her mind. I don't know. Leave the seeds on the peppers. Leave the seeds on Yes, leave the seeds on the peppers. Um, but, if you put those pellets in other things, an almond 1 almond a day. Okay, so cut up the almond and mix it up with some squash. Take squash and sprinkle your 1 almond, chop it up in little pieces, sprinkle your 1 almond on top of the squash. Sprinkle it on top of, something healthy. Terry says she makes kale wraps. I don't know if I would eat those, Terry. No, I'm teasing. And they have fun with them. So if a food opportunity turns into a fun thing, then or something that they have to work at. I mean, for our birds, foraging is a fun activity, right? It's something they do naturally. It's something that we want to encourage them to do more in human care. So if you take that and you make it something they've got to work with, there you go. Make spaghetti squash and place the pellets in amongst the spaghetti squash. Um, Take something that's a healthy item, and something that is a favorite item, and mix them together. That way you have the best of both worlds, and they may avoid it. They may continue to avoid the things that you want them to eat, right? For those of us that have had children, yeah, they always eat the things you don't want them to eat, and then the things you want them to eat, you have to turn the broccoli into trees, okay? So Deborah says she was my dad's parrot. She ate very unhealthy for many years, but is really healthy. Um, Super lucky that she's really healthy, and I understand that. We've come so very far in avian nutrition, and it's still evolving. And in that, you can do either, Cindy. As far as that evolution's concerned, Deborah, um, your father probably didn't know all the healthy things that he should have been doing. And I have a lot of times birds will come in to people who need help with behavioral consults and things like that, and it's the bird's been eating, they want to convert to a healthy diet, and the bird's been eating potato chips all its life. So you've got to figure out a way to make the healthy things as interesting. I personally, I would eat junk food all the time, but I know I can't. So you've got to figure out a way to take the things that may not, they don't taste as good as a potato chip or a hunk of chocolate, but make it taste, dress it up somehow. We play with their food, let them play with their food. So Deborah, I would suggest, just trying different things. Does the bird play with toys? Um, all right. We'll see. And if they do, then add those healthy food items to the toys. A lot of toys have little nooks and crannies that you can put things into, and do that. Let's see. You've had her for 6 years, since he passed away. She's always been involved in her life. She was fed pellets, but the table food was a lot. Yeah, I absolutely understand that. And I mean, I had a dad. My dad used to my Kaik. My dad would give him a string, like literally a leather string full of strawberries. You guys know how big a Kaik is, right? It's not a big bird. Maybe that big, that big. Doesn't need a string of strawberries. But for a lot of folks, I don't know how old you are, Deborah, but for a lot of us, the generation before us, food is love, and the more the better. And if you like something, I'm going to give you a case of it. And I think that translates into a lot of the care that some of these older birds received. So no, I absolutely understand, and there's absolute this is did I mention this is a judgment-free zone? I have, no problem whatsoever. So she's well behaved. Well, that's good. That's awesome. And I think, work with her, and if you've done any training with her, sometimes it takes a little training to get them to eat these things. Sometimes it's a matter of you've got to teach them that this is something that they should be eating. Because she's 24. In some cases, okay, so you do get it. In some cases, it's a matter of they don't recognize it. You're a culinary, so you're going to send me recipes too. It's not just Adrian. But in some cases, our birds don't recognize some of these food things as a food source because maybe they've only eaten pellets, or they've only, and not your bird, but like some people's birds have only been given junk food. And so when you put a fresh produce item in front of them, they're like, I have no idea what that is. I don't recognize that as a food source. So maybe we do a little training when they touch it or when they bite it, they get a more favored treat. They get something, they get a half a nut or something like that. So you're working with them. Sweet potato fries. Terry, you going to send me some of those? Because I think that's a great idea. Sweet potato fries. You're making them for dinner. You might as well make some for your birds too. And like, Cindy said, she feeds Carol some of the chop too when she makes chop for the birds. So we can share those kind of things. So your birds won't eat seeds. They'll even peel the cherries and grapes. Well, we definitely don't want them eating the cherry seeds. We probably don't want them eating apple seeds. We want to stay away from those kind of things. But that's okay if they don't eat the seeds. They're getting the good stuff, on the outside in the flesh and on the skin, and the same with the grapes. So Carla's saying cherries and liver. Cherries, you can definitely give them. I would probably pull the pits out. And liver, absolutely not. I would not do any liver. Oh, are cherries good for their liver? I'm not a veterinarian, Carla, or a nutritionist, so I don't have a good answer for you. But we can look into that. And if you want to message me that question on the Leather Elves page, I will see if I can find out that answer for you. So, when you said liver, I'm like, liver, she's feeding liver. Is that a Halloween joke? Okay, no. So you were wondering if it was good for their liver. I get it. So can we ask about tap water, specifically about fluoride? So I suggest, I don't drink tap water myself. The town that I live in just sent out a thing that, like, for the last 6 months, it hasn't been healthy. So I don't take that chance. I would suggest doing spring water or, distilled water, but definitely, unless you are very, very, very comfortable with the tap water source in your town or your city, I would stay away from it. So let's see. No liver for you. All right, Carla, vegan. My daughter-in-law is vegan. I completely get it. So this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And so distilled water, Dina, when I say distilled water, I'm talking about like that you purchase in a bottle or run it through a filter. Just to make sure there's no impurities or things that you really don't want to be giving your bird. So, and then the other upside to this whole conversation, Dina, is that with the fresh stuff, they're getting more moisture. So that's kind of an upside to the whole thing. You are absolutely welcome, Deborah. And I hope if you guys enjoyed tonight, I noticed there were some people that are new to Friday Night Flock Talk, or this is the first time you've participated. I love it. And I really enjoy when it's a good discussion like this. Michelle's asking for cookies. I think I'm going to get a cookie in the mail since Nick is sending out cookies. Huh? Nick's like, no, no, I'm not. So we will, I've missed you guys too. Cindy, it's been a little bit rough patch here. So we are back on track, and I appreciate you guys for hanging in and, coming back week after week. And check it out. I will send out, oh, wait. Oh, so we're having things are a little bit slower here at the Leather Elves. Mark and I are moving a little bit slower than we have.
Have you been naughty or nice?
Really? You need to ask that question, Nick. So we are having a sale for the month of November, starting November 1st. The code is Santa. That way we can get stuff out to you, get it there in time for the holidays. And here's a little secret. For those of you that tuned in tonight, that code is actually active now. So if you want to get a jump on things, code Santa from now until the end of November. We are, Nick, you're scaring Shadow. But we are having a sale at the Leather Elves. Go to the leatherelves.equid.com, and the code is Santa. So, 40% off, and we've got, we may be putting up some Christmas stuff. I haven't decided yet, but all of our toys, it's a good deal. And there are lots of spots on them. There's a toy called the Alien that has these holes built into it, and you can put, food items in there. So, you are absolutely welcome, Diane. Thank you for tuning in. You too, Adrian. Deborah, thank you. And if any of you have any further questions, please feel free to email me or message me at the Leather Elves. If I don't get back to you right away, I will. Michelle said, is there a November toy making kit yet? No, I'm working on a turkey. Michelle was part of our Halloween DIY. We've been trying to do a DIY workshop every month. You purchase the kit from the Leather Elves, we get it out to you, and we send you a link, and then we all meet and kind of brainstorm about enrichment and have some fun making toys together online. Christmas garland, we've done that before, Terry. We really do enjoy that one. So look for the November DIY kit. That will be out probably in a week or so after Halloween. I can't rush the holidays. But thank you guys, and we will see you soon. Have a great weekend, and happy Halloween for those of you that celebrate Halloween.